Hello, everyone. My name is Krishna Urbanski, Vice President, Business Development, Associate Portfolio Manager. On behalf of HAHN Investment Stewards, I would like to thank you for taking the time to attend our webinar today. It is my pleasure to introduce our special guest, Michael Curtis. Michael is the President and owner of Vision Systems Corporation. He has dedicated over 20 years of his life to the advisor investor planning dynamic. He's also a published author. His book is titled Client-Centered Life Planning. Michael, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to your presentation and your insight.
Thanks, Chris, for the opportunity.
Good stuff. So first, before we begin the presentation, let me just make a quick announcement. We are planning our Fall Advised Investment Symposium Roadshow. We're going to be across Canada. In fact, 6 cities in Canada beginning October 16th. I encourage everyone to sign up. You can visit our website for more information, or you can call us at any time, and you can get an opportunity to meet the managers and hear the HAHN story and essentially find out how we can help your business. So please make sure you take a note of these dates. And if you do have an opportunity, please sign up. So let's quickly move on. Looking briefly at the agenda, we're going to discuss the new disclosure environment, more specific, the new CSA proposal. Second, we're going to look at adding value with HAHN. How can HAHN help you add value for your clients? Third is we're going to discuss how HAHN can actually help you differentiate yourself within your peers and colleagues. And finally, Michael will talk about life planning for the new environment. And we'll have a question and answer period at the end. So if you do have any questions, please leave those for the last portion of this presentation. So, what are the current issues arising from the mutual fund fee structure in Canada? Well, on December 13, 2012, the Canadian Securities Administration published a discussion paper. The paper was essentially as a result of focused on regulations of mutual fund fees in Canada. Now, some of the things that came out were lack of understanding and control over fees by the investors. So obviously, we talk in this business about MERs. Bottom line is a lot of clients did not translate those MERs into actual fees paid. Potential conflict of interest with some companies potentially offering more trailer commission for products. That was an issue that identified. And third is lack of alignment between advisor compensation and services. So essentially, what is the advisor doing to gain ongoing compensation for the client services? Is there ongoing servicing? Is there financial planning? So all these things were looked at within this paper. Now, in spring of 2013, I actually attended one of the webinars that the CSA did. More specifically, they talked about the new implementation. The first one is a point of sale documentation, which talks about essentially manufacturers providing a 2-page document outlining all the facts, all the fees of the product itself. It's going to illustrate the actual dollar amount. It's also going to illustrate the performance in terms of interest, in terms of actual returns, but also dollar returns as well. Now, what are some of the proposals that they're talking about? One is specifying and providing advisor services in exchange for trailer commissions. So they actually want advisors to justify their service to the client. I'm going to do X for you for the amount that you're paying for me. Second is, this is something that's happening abroad already, which is eliminating the actual trailer commissions. Third is introducing additional standards of duties for investment advisors. Now, there's a lot more. I'm just looking at the ones that I believe and we believe at HAHN will have the biggest impact to your business. So what does it all mean? We all know that regulatory environment is evolving rapidly, and it's you can look at it in two ways. It's a good thing, and it's going to create a lot of opportunities for you. At least that's our view at HAHN. Greater transparency is coming. CSA, as I mentioned, has created a timeline. By 2016, all the manufacturers and dealers will need to illustrate the actual fee paid by the client in terms of the management fee and the trailer commission. So your client will get a statement outlining how much they actually paid to the manufacturer and how much they paid to the dealer in terms of dollar amount. And this could create some issues for clients if there's no perceived added value. Now, advisors do need to demonstrate superior ongoing value, and that's one key. And I'll give you a very quick example. I went to Calgary some time ago, and I met a good advisor that I known for a long time, and he was kind of frustrated with the business, and he gave me a very quick story. He had a client who was his good client, a client for 10 years, started with him with $1 million. One day the client woke up and said, you know, I'm going to do an audit on my investments. Now, his MER, I can't remember exactly what the amount was, but it was around 2.3, 2.4. So the client came to see the advisor. He sat down and he said, over the last 10 years, I paid 2.5%, 2.4% in MER, which means on my $1 million, I paid $24,000 in fees, which essentially means that he paid the advisor $10,000 per year and $14,000 to the manufacturer. Now, I met you, this is the client talking to the advisor, I met you twice last year, which means every meeting cost me $5,000. My value of my portfolio is $1,170,000. After 10 years, the fees that I paid to the manufacturer and you are $240,000. What do you say in this situation? There's going to be more and more clients looking at their statements when these fees come up. And obviously the transparency is important, but at the same time, if you position your business in a way where you're transparent now, you're different, you're going to benefit from these changes happening in our industry. So how do you really add client value? It's a very, actually a very simple question, because if you talk to any client and you ask him, what's your added value? What's value for you? In the simplest form in this business, we kind of forget this, but in the simplest form, clients want to make money, create wealth. Somebody brings you $100,000 today, they see you again in 6 months, they want to see 105,000, not 95. They want to see more money. So the simplest form, it's creating wealth for a client. How do you actually create wealth for a client? Well, there's really 4 ways. One is protect capital. 2 is actually make money, real returns after inflation, after taxes. Third is actually minimizing taxes, and there's different strategies for doing that. And 4th is generating an income for a client. Now, we all know this story. We had 2 major corrections in the market over the last, now I would say 13 years. The tech bubble in 2001, 2002, and obviously the financial crisis in 2008. This is an example of a 50-50 benchmark portfolio, a global portfolio, and essentially in many cases clients haven't made money. Now, obviously if you're state invested in this portfolio, you're making money. That being said, when a client's down 20% and they see their portfolio of of $1 million or 500,000 going down to 800,000 or 400,000, it's a big emotional roller coaster. And when you can actually protect money on the downside, it's a huge benefit to the client. It's a huge benefit to the advisor, because you don't have to handle, these essentially calls from clients, panic calls. Now, what was happening in the mutual fund industry at that time? This is an example of 3 different funds. We actually took this from Globe Fund. We used the top 3 global balance portfolios. Now, if anybody's interested in finding out what these are, we have the information. But if you look at the lines, and if you notice, the blue line is actually the benchmark. In 2008, from 2008 to 2009, you got 3 different companies, 3 different portfolio managers, everybody essentially acted the same way. Did they protect money on the downside? No. I mean, some of them have recovered. In fact, one has. But that being said, how many clients are still in this fund if you got a client that cannot take a lot of risk and they're down 20%? So the mutual fund industry did not protect on the downside. To be fair to the mutual fund industry and mutual funds, a lot of mutual funds are restricted. They're based on a prospectus. And so if it's a 60-40 mandate, the manager has to follow the mandate. So essentially, if something is actually falling, they want to get rid of it, they have to keep to their strategic balance, which obviously is not the best solution always. Now, let's look at some of our portfolios. We have 11 portfolios in total. Here I'm showing you 4 global portfolios that we have. We are a global manager. Now, if you notice the yellow box, I'm showing you 2008. Our global income balance portfolio actually went up 8.94%. And just please note this is gross of fees. So our average, our fee is 0.8, and the advisor can add whatever fee they want. Our fee is 0.8 tiered down. So more assets under management, the fee is lower. But even after fees, you're looking at this 8.94. It's a substantial outperformance versus the industry in 2008. And in 2009, we're actually beating the benchmark on the upside. So we're giving protection on the downside and participating in the upside. Same thing with our global balance, which is a second portfolio, slightly down in 2008 versus the 20% that I showed you, 3 different mutual funds. And once again, in 2009, substantial outperformance. So one of the biggest benefits of HAHN Investment Stewards is risk management, and our goal is client stewardship. And as you can see, based on historical returns, we have a really good track record. In fact, just to illustrate one more point, our global growth was down minus 12% in 2008, and recovery, substantial outperformance in 2009 as well. These are all the 3 portfolios on top are in existence for 10 years now, and the one on the bottom, which is our income-focused portfolio, for any of your clients that are looking for income. This one was launched in June 2008. So let's quickly move on. I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with this report. It's called a SPIVA report. If you're not familiar with it, I encourage you to visit the SPIVA website. In fact, they have a number of different reports. There's one for Canada, one for international, one for U.S., and essentially compares all the active management versus their respective benchmark. So over the last 3 years, only 15.39% of active management beat the benchmark. Over 5 years, it's only 9.84. Now, keep in mind, so if I bring you $100,000 and you select 4 or 5 different managers, statistically, chances are that one of those 5 is going to be a winner in terms of beating the benchmark. Now, we're not talking about making money here. We're talking about beating the benchmark. So I think this is not a new story. There's a lot of information out there on this. It's a tough game. Beating the benchmark is a tough gig, and statistically, there's only a few managers that can do this. Now, just going back to SPIVA, there's also other reports. One is called Persistency Report, and that one actually illustrates how often, like a 5-star rated manager performs after 5 years. So how often do they repeat their performance? Really good reports. I encourage you to take a look. Now, one issue with, actual getting performance or returns, just because there's a lot of volatility in the marketplace over the last 10 years, many clients do panic. They get out. Even when us in the business, we encourage the clients to stay invested for the long term, there's a lot of panic. And I'm sure most of us and most of you understand there's a lot of emotions involved. So this slide kind of illustrates over the last 30 years the performance of different sectors or different asset classes versus the average investor. And there's many reports like this. You're probably familiar with the Dalvar report, which is another famous report comes out on a regular basis. But let's look at stocks. Stocks, and this is the U.S. S&P 500. So stocks did 7.8% over this period. Average investor did 2.1. And this is before income taxes and inflation. And in fact, if you look at the inflation, average inflation is 2.6. So in fact, the client lost money. Now, let's move on and let me just quickly illustrate one of our international portfolios. Please note, this is the first line is the World Bond Index. Please note the standard deviation, 9.76, annual return 2.2. Now, I want to point out that this is all before fees. It's a benchmark and our performance before any fees. Now, let's look at the actual stock index. So MSCI Developed World Index, standard deviation is 11.58, annual return 4.3. Let's look at the HAHN benchmark, and all our benchmark information is available on our portfolio fact sheets. Just please keep that in mind. And let's look at the HAHN International Balance, which is essentially our flagship portfolio, just because it's not the best performer, but it's the biggest portfolio that we have, so we typically use this as an example. Please note the standard deviation versus the bond index, 6.62 for HAHN versus 9.76 for the bond index. Now, if we look at the stock index, 11.58 versus 6.62. So once again, we're talking about reason number 2, making money for the client. We're making money for the client with lower volatility. And this is key to make sure that the client stays invested. Now, once again, let's quickly look at our global example. So once again, the 4 global funds. These have been around, the first 3 for the last 10 years. Since inception, if you look at the numbers, 5.67 for a global income balance, annual excess return of 2.36, that's gross of fees. So after fees, you're looking at excess return of 0.36 for that particular portfolio. But that being said, every portfolio that we have has beaten the benchmark over the last 10 years. I showed you this PIVA report. Over the last 5 years, only less than 10% of active managers beat the benchmark. Over the last 10 years, we have 100%. So significant, a significant story to tell your client, and more importantly, when clients get nervous, you have the story and we have consistency as well. So let's quickly move on. Number 3, adding value with tax efficiency. This is a report published by Vanguard, and essentially it's saying that out of all the things that actually create wealth for a client, one of the most important things is tax efficiency at 28%. What's interesting is security selection is only at 2%, and even more interesting to me, portfolio cost is only 7%. So this is a great information. With HAHN, we do help minimize taxes. We have an SMA structure, which essentially has individual cost base. We can do tax harvesting. If you recall, a typical mutual fund has to distribute capital gains to a client, but they do not distribute capital losses. We can actually lock in capital losses for our clients in our SMA structure. And finally, our management fee is tax deductible from the client's income. Another huge benefit that we have, we have a way to make the registered assets tax deductible as well in terms of the management fee. So if you want more information on that, please let us know. We can give you all the information. Now lastly, I just want to quickly illustrate our income portfolio. This one's been around since 2008. Once again, if you look at a standard deviation versus the bond index and equity index, substantial downside protection in terms of standard deviation and volatility protection, and the annual return is outstanding as well. Now let's quickly move on. So, Chris, you can say, Chris, this is all great, but how does HAHN actually help me? Well, we can actually help you really differentiate yourself, and I'll tell you how. We have a global macro theme. We're specialists at global macro. In fact, our portfolio managers, and I'll briefly mention them in a few minutes, have a history of 30 years specifically in global macro. We have tactical moves. We're not restricted like a typical mutual fund. And we manage, essentially all our portfolios are ETF based. We have the longest track record in the world, in fact, managing ETF portfolios. And as you know, currently there's a huge ETF buzz. One of the key components that I want to kind of make sure that is clear here, this is one of the fastest growing trends in the U.S. post-crisis, managed portfolios. Now, if you take a look at your business model, and let's assume you're only licensed to sell mutual fund, what if you get a prospect and the prospect says, take a look at my portfolio? Essentially, the only option you have is showing the prospect the mutual funds that you use. What if you can say to your prospect, well, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I'm actually using a new strategy now, and the strategy is more of a private client division type of a strategy where we deal directly with the discretionary portfolio management. I can't guarantee you that you're going to get more business doing this, but I can guarantee you that your clients are going to listen. And in this competitive environment, it's very important to have something specialized, something different, something that separates you from, once again, your colleagues in your office or your peers in the business industry. Now, so quickly, discretionary portfolio management, been around for a long time. The only problem is it was very expensive to actually get into. And in fact, through our systems and the current ETF use, we have brought the number down to $100,000. So our account minimum is only $100,000. Now, I'm going to move more quickly here because of time. But our global asset mix strategy is a lot different than a typical manager. We look at a macro level, top down. We look at so many different factors. In fact, 23 different factors. I looked at 10 here. But market psychology, as you can see, is very important in our strategy. Historical valuations, monetary conditions, everything is examined. We meet on a quarterly basis, and we come up with a strategy for the next quarter and a longer term as well. So, as I mentioned, specialist global expertise. Wilfred HAHN, the founder of this company, he was the former head of Royal Bank Global Investment Group, managing pensions, over $13 billion under management. Mark Arthur, also of RBC Global Investment Management, and later Vice President Investments and Director of Royal Mutual Funds. Tyler Morty has been with HAHN since the beginning. He's considered an ETF specialist, and in fact, he was named one of the top 10 rising stars by Index Universe, which is a huge publication in the U.S. They chose 2 Americans and 1 Canadian, which is Tyler. Now, just a quick outline of our strategy. If you notice the black line, we're using, if you look at total equity and look at a black line, it's showing you at 50%. If you look at total bonds and the black line at 45. So essentially, we're trying to illustrate here a 50-50 portfolio, 50 equity, 50 bonds. If you look at our strategy, once again, look at total equity. We have a range. So we can take our total equity from 30 to 75, depending on our view. So this tactical ability gives us a lot more freedom than a typical mutual fund. Obviously, there are some tactical managed mutual funds, and in fact, they have done quite well as well. But this strategy is a very important strategy because we look at asset mix selection versus security selection. Another important distinction that we have is what we call opportunity assets. And that is something that's not typically represented in a mutual fund. Essentially, it's something that's a little different, not correlated to marketplace. Give you a quick example. Recently, we bought the Polish ETF, which is considered the frontier market. Most managers will not look at the market. One, lack of knowledge. Second, once again, because it is a frontier market. But for us, we have the latitude to go there. And in fact, that purchase was a substantial yield, and the risk reward was better than anything in North America. So those are some of the things that we can do that separates us, and this is how we can add value to your client's portfolio and you as well. Now, just a very quick comment. So we only use ETFs. I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, are familiar with ETFs, so I'm not going to get into this. But just one quick comment from Wilfred HAHN, our founder and co-CIO. He's saying that we can now build better portfolios with $100,000 than essentially we could do 20 years ago for large pensions and big institutions. So ETFs have given us this ability to be very flexible and at the same time keep the costs down in terms of the entry point. Now, so what's in it for your client? Essentially, SMA structure, many benefits, individual cost base, full transparency. The client will actually see the fee paid to HAHN as a portfolio manager and a fee paid to the advisor. You have access to some of the world's leading ETFs. We actually do have a system in place to select the ETFs that we use. There's over 4,000 ETFs in the world now. We have a universe of 100 and use about 65 currently. Once again, full transparency. Anything and everything is available for the client. If you buy a standard mutual fund, you typically know what the top 10, maybe top 20 are. And once a year, you're going to get the annual statements where it shows you what the holdings are at that time. We have full transparency. Your client and yourself, you can see what exactly they have in their portfolio 24/7. Full reporting, once again. And a key important factor here is in an SMA structure, the client is the owner of the actual security. So in our case, ETFs. In a mutual fund, they're the owner of a unit of a trust. So that's another big important. So what's the benefit for you? Now the benefit is reduction of compliance. When you refer business to HAHN, essentially the compliance resides in HAHN. You save time. We do the bulk of that admin work for you. You can concentrate on your client relationships. That's probably the most important factor. I think everybody will agree. The more time you spend with your clients, the more productive those relationships will be. They will generate referrals for you as well. Increase revenue. When you have more time to concentrate on other revenue-producing ventures like insurance, for example, financial planning, and you can create your own structure in terms of commission. Increase marketability. This is huge. Once again, if you're looking for something different, I know a lot of advisors in the business. Many advisors spend thousands of dollars on creating a specific niche. Will it be a certain demographic? Something specific like a doctor or dentist. This is the most easiest and cost-effective way to create a niche for yourself, essentially creating a private client division within your practice, and anybody over 100,000, you can introduce them to a portfolio manager like HAHN, and there's many benefits to it. Now, at this point, I will pass the stage to Michael, and Michael is going to once again talk about life planning in this new environment, and he's going to illustrate some of the tools that are necessary, at least we believe, in this new environment to make you successful. So Michael, please go ahead.
Chris, thank you very much for the opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Today we'll be discussing the new era of life planning, or next generation financial planning. The key points we'll look at are time management effectiveness, significantly greater client engagement, upside in working with clients beyond investments, the regulatory focus the CSA is taking in regards to compensation structures and in particular to fee transparency. In view of this focus, the need to demonstrate ongoing value to clients and the opportunity to differentiate yourself. In order to talk about the new era of life planning, we'll need to examine the evolution of planning from an historical perspective. We'll also cite some statistics about client engagement. This background will help you recognize how life planning fills the client engagement gap and is the most effective solution for fee transparency. We've talked about life planning, but what is it? We define financial planning as crunching numbers and the financial tactics and products that will help clients achieve their financial objectives. By comparison, life planning is about your clients' lives. we define it as the creation of a satisfying and fulfilling vision of life and the discovery of how to achieve that vision. Life planning includes financial planning, but focuses much more on the things that clients have and do now and would like to have and do in retirement. Think of life planning as a life simulator. By the end of the presentation, you'll understand why this is crucial due to fee transparency. Let's talk about the evolution of planning. We've defined three broad eras in the age of computer-assisted planning. The investment planning era lasted from the mid-80s to mid-90s. At that time, computer hardware technology was very limiting. As a consequence, number crunching was mainly done by way of spreadsheets and very crude planning software. The focus of plans was necessarily restricted to investment portfolios and rates of return, hence our investment planning label. Between about 1993 and 95, there was a major leap forward in hardware technology. It enabled the creation of far more powerful cash flow planning software. We refer to this era as the financial planning era. Almost all of the planning software that dominates the marketplace today was released around 1997. Since the late 90s, there's been an even greater leap forward in hardware technology. It's this leap that's enabled the new era of life planning, the creation of real-life simulators. There's another aspect to this evolution. It's not only the numbers that can be crunched, it's also about the planning process itself. The methodology that was devised 25 years ago and continues to be taught and practiced today is the six-step process. Let's have a look at it. In the six-step process, a questionnaire is used to collect data from clients, such as their budget, by which I mean their income sources and how they spend money, and their assets. There's a goals conversation. What do you want to plan for? Of course, steps 1 and 2 can be reversed. The key point is that advisors take this information and create plans for clients. 25 years ago, this was necessary because technology was so crude. Advisors literally patched plans together using a variety of tools. As a result, advisors needed to assemble their recommendations in a presentable document for delivery to clients. Of course, when you present a plan to clients and get their feedback, you need to incorporate their changes, which means a rewrite and another meeting to represent. It's this approach that leads to time and complexity issues. Let's cite some industry statistics. Please recognize that these are industry statistics and may not apply to your business. However, they're instructive. A 2012 research study by the U.S. Financial Planning Association found that 72% of U.S. advisors take more than 6 hours to create financial plans. The mean was about 15 hours. A recent poll by Investment Executive found that although 82% of advisors now offer their clients plans, only 52% of clients have plans. The article cited clients' resistance to planning because they believed that creating a plan would be an arduous process. The response by many advisors has been to offer simpler plans. That is, comprehensive plans have been replaced by retirement plans that focus on portfolios and perhaps insurance needs. But simplicity is not a solution. What's the evidence? Let's look at some more industry statistics. According to another study, 80% of planning recommendations don't lead to action. If 82% of advisors offer their clients plans, but only 52% of clients have plans, and only 20% of recommendations result in action, the math says that only 9% of clients perceive or receive value from planning. We can look at this in a number of ways, but basically what this means is that a great deal of an advisor's time that's spent on creating plans is unproductive. The new era of life planning resolves these issues because it engages clients on a visual, emotional, and interactive basis. Life planning isn't just about simulating real life and crunching more complex numbers. It's also a far more effective way of engaging clients in the planning process. Let's use a simple example. I'd like you to imagine a winter vacation. At least for an instant, you had a mental image of what that might mean to you. For example, the image might have been a ski holiday or a beach. It's also important to understand that the area of the brain that assembles mental images is tightly linked to the area that's responsible for emotions. In other words, the more the clients can clearly visualize their future, the greater their emotional engagement in their plan. Let's compare this experience to the typical planning question, how much income do you want in retirement? Your mental image of it is literally a number, and there's no emotional engagement in the number. How can you help clients visualize their future so that they become emotionally engaged in the planning process? The approach that we take at Vision Systems is to use symbols in order to help clients clarify their wants. For example, if they're asked to think about vacations, the winter vacation button will stimulate their mental image of what a winter vacation means to them. As a side note, using pictures isn't effective because they're literal. That is, if you show clients pictures, they might say, that's not the kind of winter vacation that I had in mind. Further, the range of symbols has to be complete, by which I mean they have to include things that clients want to have and do now, not just in retirement. This is critical. Plans that focus on retirement are often outside clients' time horizon. What do I mean by this term? We all know the concept about looking back on life from the perspective of a future point in time. But that point is never 10, 20, or 30 years from now. The norm is 3 years because it's within our time horizon. Plans that focus on retirement only are beyond many clients' time horizon. There's no immediacy and therefore no urgent motivation. Let's use another example. All plans include the costs of educating children, but they often neglect launching costs such as weddings. Launching costs not only have a financial implication, they often stimulate emotions. As a side note, the brain can't tell time. For example, it doesn't matter if a wedding will occur in 2 years or 20 years. Clients have a mental image and experience an emotional response today. The second important distinction about life planning is that it's done interactively with clients. All planning is about learning, decision-making, and action. When you create plans for clients, the focus must be on financial planning tactics because you can't make values-based lifestyle decisions for your clients. But it's their lifestyle concerns that they talk about at the dinner table. Further, when you create plans for clients, the learning medium is the plan document. You use it to prove your recommendations. But based on your experience, you know that the present, rewrite, and represent approach consumes a lot of your valuable time. By comparison, when you create plans with clients, you can make a change and clients can immediately see the impact. Clients learn and make decisions in live time. To demonstrate interactive planning, I'll use the VisionWorks Life Planning software. On the left, Bill and Sue have an income asset shortfall. They're not accumulating enough income-producing assets to enjoy the retirement that they've envisioned. On the right, there's a list of wants ranked in order of importance based on their values. Let's use restaurants as an example. The lifetime cost is almost $300,000. Bill and Sue decide to make a values-based trade-off. Other wants are more important to them. They'll cut the expense in half. an unfamiliar mouse for me during this presentation. I apologize. When you save the change, the income assets projection will be recalculated. Almost instantly, they can see the net effect of the change. The line shows the pre-change projection, and the area graph shows the post-change effect. Working with clients interactively in this fashion can be done to answer questions such as, what if we downsize our house? You can demonstrate the effect of portfolio reallocations. Virtually anything can be addressed, and all of these issues can be considered in a single meeting with clients. So let's recap what we've learned. When we take a visual approach with clients, we engage them emotionally. Life planning is also an interactive process. Clients see for themselves their financial, estate, and insurance gaps. Their questions are answered about the impact of lifestyle alternatives. You're able to illustrate effective financial planning tactics. As clients learn, they make decisions. And from your client's point of view, you've been their financial coach. They've created their plan for themselves. They own it and are empowered by it. There's only one more important point. What you've actually done is create a decision-making model. And it's because of this model that you offer ongoing value. There's no final plan. There's only your client's vision of life today and their current financial situation. Whether it's 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years from now, their wants will change. Once you've created the decision-making model, clients can revisit it whenever they face a new option in life. You model what they're thinking of doing and see the implications. They make mistakes on the model's practice field rather than making irreversible and costly mistakes in real life. Let's tie this back to fee transparency. Let's assume that you have a client who has $100,000 with HAHN. The management fee is 0.8% or $800 a year. However, you add an additional 1% or $1,000. As a client, I understand why I'm paying HAHN $800. But if all you've done is a simple retirement plan, which won't change much each year, why am I paying you $1,000 every year? By comparison, if you do life plans with clients and create a decision-making model, you offer ongoing value because you help them effectively manage change. The question is, does the life planning approach work? There are no statistics similar to those that we quoted earlier. However, there's anecdotal evidence that's based on the experience of advisors. Here are 2 unsolicited quotes. My first client meeting went exceptionally well. I don't believe that I've ever had anyone say the planning process was fun. And secondly, at the end of the day, clients get a very accurate and motivating life plan. Thank you again, Chris, for the opportunity to present life planning today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. If you'd like to discuss the life planning approach, here's my contact information. Back to you, Chris.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Very informative. Thank you very much. So just essentially, let me kind of close this off. So what does it all mean? I think everybody will agree that our industry is changing. Clients are seeking out greater transparency. The fact is, it's coming. Clients are seeking out superior ongoing value. There's tools in the business right now to offer these things to the client. I believe that HAHN is one of those tools, as well as VisionWorks, for example. And we're more than happy to give you more information. If you're interested, you can give us a call at any time. Now, we're going to answer, there's a few questions. We're going to go through the questions. Oh, I'm sorry, there's no questions. If anybody has any questions, please use your question box and you can type in your question, and we'll be around for a couple minutes to answer any of the questions. If you are interested in more information, you can visit our website, www.hahninvest.com. If you're interested in learning more from Michael, you can visit his website at visionsystems.corp.com as well. So once again, thank you very much for your time, and we'll be here online for a couple minutes to see if there's any questions. Okay, well, once again, thank you for your time. It doesn't look like, oh, I'm sorry, there's a question for Michael.
What does it say? Sorry, I can't read it. Do you offer hands-on
Training.
Oh, what we do actually is we have interactive training videos on the website. And we encourage advisors to play the videos, mock up what they've learned. They're broken into 3 steps. And the way we approach things is you do the step 1 videos. They last about an hour and 13 minutes. Mock up what you learned. By the way, the average length of a video is about 6 minutes. And then at the end of step 1, we actually do a webinar coaching session with you where we look at what you've done, answer your questions, and point out anything we see. And then after that, we go on to the next group of lessons and so on. So playing videos is great. You can do them at your convenience. You can repeat them. You can play a few, say that's enough for now. But like anything, we need our work checked. To have confidence that we've done things correctly, we'd like to have somebody have a look. So that's sort of the combination of videos plus live coaching sessions.
Now, the next question, Michael, is for you. Does this software run on Apple systems?
We don't have a Mac version because it's completely different code, but the software does work quite well if you're able to run Windows on your Mac.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And I'm just looking to see if there's any additional questions. It looks like there's no more questions, but once again, we will, I'm sorry, there's one more. Some of you were having issues with audio. We will have a playback of this webinar if you're interested. But once again, feel free to contact anyone at HAHN for questions on HAHN, and feel free to contact Michael and questions on VisionWorks. So once again, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us today, and just keep. We do have the advisor symposium going across cities in Canada, and the more information is available on our website as well. So thank you very much. Have a great everyone. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.